As far as I understand the metaverse, is it correct, Josh, that they're just floating heads with no lower bodies?
Currently, but we got to think Ready Player One, because eventually this is going to be, it's going to be like we're here now. Only I don't think we'll feel wind and cold or warmth for a long time. Mm-hmm. And we may not be able to taste peanut butter for a long time.
Well, that's a problem, because peanut butter and chocolate.
Well, that's going to keep a lot of people coming back to the real world.
Yeah,
I think.
Peanut butter and chocolate. I have done a lot of dumb things
but
for peanut butter and chocolate.
Eventually, they're going to unlock that game token too, and we're going to be able to, all sensations will be met. And then it's going to be a real different game. And at what point, what's the difference between that reality and this one? We've just created another one to live in.
Right.
But I'd love to ask you to speak on the difficulties of the real world and how a lot of people are shy from them because they are so challenging. And the video game is a great way to run away from it and stay there and feel like you're still gaining some type of ground because you just built up your tokens or something. But in reality, you've really gone nowhere, and you're in your mom's basement and you're 32 or even older, and you're still just nowhere. And, you're not married, you don't have any kids, and people are doing this, and we're hearing these horrible stories from South Korea where they had a real baby, and they neglected it to death because they were taking care of their virtual baby in a video game.
Yeah, you can't unlock an achievement by feeding a real baby.
When does that become? When does this become a mental illness? And why aren't we doing anything to really kind of go about changing that?
I think I go back to the logos and the mythos. You have to go back to the allegory of the cave. The allegory of the cave is the thing that is happening. Where people were in prison, they were shackled, and as they were shackled, they look up at a wall, there was a fire behind them, and the shadows on the wall were moving by. They took that as reality. And when someone breaks free of the shackles, works their way out of the cave, goes out, even at the night the stars are too bright, until they can finally look at the reflection of the sun in the water, and eventually look at the sky itself and have that enlightenment, they get awakened. They go back into the cave and try to tell everybody, hey, these are just shadows on the wall. This isn't real substantive. You can't have the beauty. You can't have the connection. Mm-hmm. Come with me. And they plot to kill those people. And so if you go on this journey to break out the metaverse, if you go on it and you wake up to this real thing, you have to come in alongside the people that are trapped with compassion and to meet them where they are.
It's going to be more and more and more people.
It just makes me wonder, though, why we need it in the first place.
That's Zuckerberg, man.
What is it going? Because humans will use any tool and abuse it. So it's why do we? What's the intention here? How is this going to help?
I think I understand the deep intention, which I think is eventually we're going to live on different spheres. And us being able to meet and connect with people who are on the moon or Mars or God knows where, that's going to be really helpful for us as technology progresses.
Right.
And that makes sense, especially if we live in a world where we're really far away from each other, just on this planet.
Right.
If
a really good FaceTime call.
It's like FaceTime on steroids.
Right.
If I can see my wife and have a virtual dinner with her and really feel like I'm in the room and even kiss her goodnight, and I'm across the ocean.
So this is interesting. There's inherent value in that, right?
That's really
especially
great.
If in the context of the pandemic, we could see that technology served us in some really important ways, right? To connect more easily. A lot of people were isolated,
the invention of the telephone.
The invention of the telephone. But let me bring this up. I'm curious what you guys think about it, because it's, I think, one of the core lessons I learned on the pilgrimage I talk about in the book. And you asked about the challenges facing people in everyday life. And what I learned was there were times on that pilgrimage, there were times in my life, and there continue to be times in my life when there's nobody around to help me. There's nobody around to hold my hand. There's no one around to soothe me. There's no one there to tell me it's going to be okay. I didn't have a telephone on that trip.
No.
There was no Instagram. I wasn't every 2 seconds. I learned this.
Here's my lunch. I'm eating.
I learned this. It's like, no, you didn't learn it because you were so excited about sharing it that
Right.
you actually didn't learn it yet.
You weren't processing it.
You didn't integrate it
Right.
yet. We can tell. So the way that we can hyper connect, I think, is part of what I said before that has weakened people, because now we have a dependency on the connection. But part of becoming, I think, a mature human is also learning to be alone sometimes. I'm not saying all the time, because sometimes if you're available, I'm going to ask you for help.
Sure.
That's mature.
Right.
But what if you're not available? What if you're 10 days in on the Appalachian Trail and there's no one there except you? How are you going to treat yourself? That's part of what I had to learn. I had to learn to soothe myself, to nourish myself from the inside, to have faith in myself, to tell myself it's going to be okay. You take the next step. You
Right.
have something to eat.
Yeah.
You get up in the morning and you walk again. That's what you need to do. And if we don't teach people that, if they don't learn how to do that, and I see it with my own students, they've been overparented, they're very dependent, they're very anxious, and it's partly because they can't stand on their own. So if we don't also enable people
Right.
that tension of like loving and supporting, enabling connection, we need connection. But
Absolutely.
But I grew up, Gen Xer, so I grew up without the internet. So I'm always wondering, like, do we need this much connection? Because there's like 12 WhatsApp messages in my phone, and I really don't want to answer them. Like,
Right.
I don't need that much connection. Like, so
Do I need to like give you my location while I'm pooping, and do we need to talk?
Right.
It's like, come on.
Like,
Yeah.
we're already connected. So
Overly.
like, it's
Overly.
like the amount of communication
Yeah.
for me is what I'm concerned about, and the dependency on it, so that if you need to communicate that much
Right.
just to exist, something's wrong. Like
Something,
we
yeah.
haven't learned something. We're not teaching people something about the difficulty of being human, like the existential reality of being human.